Okay, let's begin. The Dark Tower 3, The Wasteland. I know these videos have been kind of getting long, but these books are long. I'm going to try to streamline this one, though, and see if I can get it a little shorter than before. Okay, so, it's been a couple months since the end of the drawing of the 3. Susanna and Eddie are learning how to shoot, but Eddie's also picking up carving, which he used to do as a kid. He was good at it, but every time he was good at something, his brother Eddie would browbeat him verbally until he stopped being as good as, Henry would browbeat Eddie verbally until he stopped being good at things, or he just gave up on things. So, again, Eddie is learning to carve, Susanna's learning to shoot, and Roland is learning what it's like to lose his mind, because, as I stated in the last video, Roland saved Jake from being pushed. Now Roland is suffering from a double memory of things. One scenario, there was no boy at the way station. The other scenario, there was a boy at the way station. So while this is happening, they find what's known as the Path of the Beam. The beam will lead them, is a direct beeline to the tower. Each beam has 2 guardians at one end. They kill the guardian of the beam, which is a giant cyborg bear named Shardik. The people called him Mir, which is the dark place under the world. They shoot a satellite dish off Sharik's head, and Sharik has become disease-ridden, full of parasites over the years. And Sharik was made by Lemerk Foundries, a name who's going to keep coming up in the series. So, Eddie, he starts having a dream about being back in New York in gray slacks and blue blazer, and, what's his name? Jack Andolini is talking to him about Eddie having the key and the train that goes everywhere. And Eddie steps through a building and ends up in the field of red where the Dark Tower stands, and he sees the tower. So, back in New York, Jake is suffering the same way Roland's suffering. There are 2 memories. The memory where he gets pushed in the street, dies, wakes up in the way station when Roland first met him, and the memories now that he has of not dying and living in New York. So Jake and Roland are both basically being torn apart at this time. Eddie starts whittling a key, and while Jake is out on an adventure, he flees from school. While Jake is out on his French leave, as he puts it, he finds in a vacant lot a key that is similar to the one that Eddie is carving. He also finds a rose, and it's a special rose. The rose is the embodiment of the Dark Tower in his world. So inside the rose is the sun, and the sun of all worlds, all winds, all wares. There's the voice of what he calls yes. There are thousands of faces in the empty lot, telling him 1,000 different stories. So, why Jake has the key, he doesn't hear the voices anymore, and why Roland in their world holds Eddie's key that he's carving, he doesn't hear the voices anymore. So it's kind of a talisman in helping both Eddie, it helps Eddie overcome Henry finally, because he finally lets Henry go, and he finally asserts himself as a full adult. So, but it's also helping Jake and Roland while they're going mad. Now, Jake has a dream about Eddie, he, as a 13-year-old kid, tells Eddie, and Eddie tells Jake to find him in Co-op City, and he does, and Jake follows Eddie to a place called the Mansion in Dutch Hill, because Henry took him there. It's a haunted house, apparently. Nobody wants to go by it. Now, while that's happening, in the parallel, Roland, Susanna, and Eddie have come across a speaking ring where Incubus lives instead of Succubus. Now, Susanna kind of becomes Dead a Walker, and the Incubus goes after her, but he's also afraid of Deda, so it's kind of a let go of me, but I need you type thing while the Incubus is fucking her. Now, Eddie is drawing a door into the ground, and it starts raining, so Roland is covering him with a tarp, and to make sure the door doesn't erase. So, Jake is in the house. The house is alive. It's a monster. I mean, the plaster walls form into a face and hands and are trying to grab Jake and throw it into its mouth and eat him. So, they get to the door labeled the boy in the house. Eddie writes the boy on his door. The door comes to life on the ground. But Eddie's made an error in the key, so he has to skim off a little bit with the knife to make it perfect. They open it, Suzanne lets go of the incubus, Roland catches it, and jumps through the doorway and lets the incubus go. The gatekeeper chokes to death on the incubus, and Roland brings Jake into their world. His final drawing. The voices are gone. Both Jake, Eddie, and Suzanne are all united. Now I kind of skipped over while Jake was on his adventure. He picked up a book called Charlie the Choo Choo, which labels a psychotic train, kind of psychotic train. Jake thinks it's psychotic. Eddie and Suzanne had this book as children too, and they thought it was psychotic as well. Jake also picks up a riddle book from a guy named Tower in the Manhattan Restaurant The Mind. It all ties back into each other. You'll see eventually. So they come across a small town called River Crossing where the elderly people are, and they announce the coming of the White. With Roland and Jake, Suzanne, and Eddie see Roland kind of as he was when there was still society to protect. He was like a diplomat. He was he was a poet. He was a diplomat, and everybody in the town of River Crossing goes to Roland for a blessing. They want him to put a blessing on him. Now the elder in River Crossing, their leader, gives him a silver crucifix to lay at the feet of the Dark Tower and cry out her name. Roland takes it. Now, also in their path is the city of Lud. Lud is kind of like a New York version of New York, but it's in decay. And an ongoing war for the past couple centuries have been going on against two warring factions, the Greys and the Pubes. So, along the path, Jake picks up an animal that's kind of a hybrid between a raccoon and a rodent of some kind called Billy Bumbler. Billy Bumblers mimic human speech, so he calls the thing Oi, and it calls itself Oi, and it imitates people. It's kind of cute. It's his little pet, Oi Oi. So they make it to Lud. They have to cross like a George Washington Bridge that's falling apart, so they walk on the supports and across the guardrails and everything to make there. So they make it to Lud. Jake is picked up by one of the Greys, a deranged man by the name of Gasher, who's dying of a disease in Roland's world known as the Madras, or Horse Blossom. So Roland decides he's going after Jake. He sends Eddie and Susanna to go find the cradle of Blaine. Blaine is a mono that the old people River Crossing told him about that still runs and still operates. So as Jake is being beat by Gasher, who took him while they're running to Gasher's boss, the TikTok Man. Now Jake is brought down to the lair of the TikTok Man, and the TikTok Man wants to turn on all the machines and computers in Lud and have the secrets of the great old ones who built the city. Now, they've found these drums that are beating, that affect the pubes who live in the city proper. The pubes, when they hear them, they call them the god drums, and they hang each other. And according to lots that they draw once the god drums have gone off to appease the spirits that live under the city. Now, Susanna and Eddie run into the pubes. Susanna shoots a pube with Roland's gun that he gives her, and two pubes take Susanna and Eddie to the cradle of Blaine. Now, there were two monos, Blaine and Patricia. Blaine convinced Patricia to go out and throw herself into the Seine River, which is the big body of water that the tracks run over. Blaine is going through what he calls a spiritual malaise, and he gives Susanna and Eddie a riddle to open the gate to get access to him. But they tell Susanna and Eddie tell Blaine that Roland, their din, in the high speech, Roland's speech, it means leader, father, is an expert at riddles, so he's very interested. Blaine becomes very interested that gunslingers still exist in the world, and he likes riddles. Now, Jake, in the lair of the TikTok Man, is trying to stall for time while Roland has tracked Gasher down with the help of Oi. So Roland comes in, eventually breaks down the door, comes in, shoots everybody. Shoots Gasher and all of them, and Jake ends up shooting the TikTok Man in the forehead and with a gun that the TikTok Man had by his seat. So Roland picks up Jake, and Blaine comes to Roland and Jake in the form of this little ball on a metal spike. and it says, "Come to me, come to me at the cradle." So while Roland and Jake are going to the cradle, Blaine turns on all the machines, right? The TikTok man. But people are so scared of the new technology, they see him as demons, and they start killing each other. So they flee, and the TikTok man is picked up by Randall Flagg, a.k.a. Martin, a.k.a. Walter, a.k.a. the Man in Black, who's still alive and full of treachery. So the Man in Black takes the TikTok man off with him. Now, they eventually get into Blaine with the help of Detta, because Detta is really good at math. And Blaine is bored with life and everything, and to the point of psychosis where the people were worshiping him as a god, and he let them because he never stopped serving the people of Lud. He decides he's going to kill himself and all of them. He challenges Roland to a riddle contest. If they win, they stay alive. If not, Blaine's going to kill them all. So the third book basically ends with them on the mono going across the wastelands, because no one can survive the wastelands without some sort of protection. And the riddling contest begins, and that will pick up in the fourth book, The Wizard in Glass. Now, Ender, again, you're the gunslinger. You're left with all these decisions, bringing Jake into your world now, and, hearing the stories of River Crossing, and eventually fighting everybody and the Greys, and making your way to Blaine the Mono, who's completely crazy. How do you deal with all this? Please, comment below, write in the hashtag. Please like, share, and subscribe to the video if you haven't. As I said, after the Dark Tower series, we'll be making some rebranding and changes to the channel upcoming, which will all be laid out in an update video. I hope you'll stick around for this. As always, Enders, I am your host.